Hey, this is Steve Halleck of TickTocking. As always, you can find me at Steve Halleck on Instagram or at TickTocking.com. I wanted to do a little combo review today. I got two really cool watches in, and I think they both kind of show a similar vibe, and that is a new style of luxury that is really, I think, made for people kind of my generation and a sort of luxury of the now rather than these throwback brands. Obviously, the watch industry is anchored by titans like Rolex and Patek Philippe and now all these big luxury groups, Swatch Group, Richemont. They have these heritage brands. They've been around forever. This idea of luxury and luxury watches has been around forever. But I don't think it's a coincidence that right now we're seeing a big boom in steel sport watches, because times have changed, you know, like people are different and dress differently and customs are different, and that sort of fancy luxury idea that had been around for quite a long time is dying down a little bit. In its place, even wealthy people with really good jobs are pretty casual almost all the time, or if not casual, this idea that you can't wear a sport watch with a suit has completely gone away. You know, all sorts of standards of dress and these very sharp rules. There's no real rules to anything. And so I think we're just much more casual as people right now, certainly in America. I don't know if this holds for every country, but I definitely know here. In addition to that, because of the internet and just this new wave of young consumers, we are interested in different things. The idea of these fancy old brands isn't quite as appealing as it might have been in the past. And so there's this push for more like artisanal products of you know, showing the work involved in something, of a really a labor of love, and these kind of direct-to-consumer models and things where the value is apparent in the product itself, or you know, no extra BS is involved. This is all kind of big things to people of my generation. You know, most of my friends are not into watches or luxury items in general, but when they are, these are the types of things that they're usually looking for. So today I have two watches, each from different independent brands, but they each really represent this ethos really well, so I thought it would be cool to look at them together. They're both extremely limited versions, and they represent, I think, the best of these brands. The first is a Ressence, and it is the Type 1 5 Genesis, which is a long name, but this was a limited edition that they made. They made only 5 pieces, so this is like the hardest to find Ressence that there is. And the idea with it was to be a perfect summation of the Ressence manufacturing ethos. Ressence was founded by, not by a watchmaker, but by an industrial designer, and the products have a very industrial vibe to them, obviously. So it is completely raw, basically. Almost all the parts are exactly as they are off of the machines. The case is straight off of the lathe, it's titanium, and the machining marks are still in it. The dial has no pigment on it, whereas all their other watches have lume and painted hands, and this stuff, it is fully engraved, and the hands are galvanized to give them a little bit of contrast. But I'll go over that with the watches. The next one is by Ochs Jr., another brand that I've reviewed a couple times on this channel, and another really cool brand where the whole idea is to make a new kind of luxury where people can custom order their watches. They also do a lot of industrial finishing, kind of as it is off the machine type of stuff. They're famous for complications that use very, very few parts. So their first model was an annual calendar that I think used 9 parts or something like this. This watch is their most complicated watch, which is a perpetual calendar, meaning that it takes into account leap years and 28, 29, 30, and 31-day months. And I think it uses 17 parts for that perpetual calendar mechanism, which is really amazing. And this is a piece unique that was created entirely in sterling silver with really cool patinations, and it's just also a very cool watch. But I wanted to bring you both of these and kind of compare and contrast them a little bit and talk about this idea of a new form of luxury and a really cool thing. It is also important to note that these watches are both between like 20 and 30 grand versus most of the stuff that I put on this channel that can very easily be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times as expensive. So, you know, they present really, really incredible value for money, true artisan craftsmanship, but kind of aim to suck out a lot of BS. And, you know, as most independent watchmakers do, but not everybody wants to pay 10 times the amount for intricately finished stuff. You know, Grubel Forsey is not for everybody. mb&F is not for everybody. Urwerk is not for everybody. Richard Mille is not for everybody. These are all amazing brands and they do what they do. But some people, you know, obviously really like this more industrial, more sort of, it's a little bit more hip. It's a little bit more cool. It's a little bit more of the now. And it's kind of unique to this time period. So let me show you these watches.
So here you can see the two watches side by side, and obviously they're kind of very different in some ways, but in a lot of ways really similar and kind of share an aesthetic. And this is of course why I wanted to kind of video review them together. Let's start with the Ressence. So this is a really, really special piece in that it is limited to only 5 pieces. It was made for their 5th anniversary, and the idea was to make kind of the most representative piece of the brand's ethos, which is really this kind of industrial minimalist design. And so this particular one is all raw. The case is just as it is out of the milling machine. It's titanium. My favorite part of these lugs, you can see how they just kind of like seamlessly come out of the case, and you can see the weld marks still in the case there. They're really stunning. And the dial is nickel silver and sandblasted, which is kind of the only finishing at all. Also the hands are galvanized so that they're easier to read, but there's no paint anywhere. All the numbers and indentations are engraved. There's no further finishing on anything. So again, it's just a kind of 100% functional here. You can see as well this kind of convex sapphire that extends all the way over the edge into the side of the case. So there's no actual bezel on the watch, really. It's all sapphire on the top. Just to show you how it works, you have your hour here, minute here. This is a day of the week indicator, and here you have subseconds. So as time goes, everything rotates together. So right there you'd have 1050, right? Really, really cool. It also has these kind of gears inside, because you see there's no crown, right? So it is automatic, but when you wind the watch, it winds while you set the time. So, you know, if your watch were dead, you'd pick it up, you'd set the time, and as you were setting the time, it would give it that normal jump start that you get just by winding the crown a few times. And you can hear that here. maybe you can't, maybe you heard that click. As you're going along with the time, it periodically will reach these areas where you can feel it kind of catch onto gears and then roll through and then click off and be a little bit more free afterwards. And that's the watch winding itself, basically. So this is the Ressence, and I'll show it to you on the wrist in a minute. But let's go to the Ochs Junior. A little bit more complicated, this one. This is a unique piece in all sterling silver, and you can actually find it on their website. I think the page says like Simply Silver Perpetual calendar, and this is the, I believe, only perpetual calendar they've made in all silver. The silver is really cool. I can't recall, I think I've owned only one other silver watch, which was also an Ochs Junior, but not all silver like this one. And you can see as compared to titanium, it's much warmer, and it has this really amazing like glow in the light, which is pretty unique, and especially paired with this sturgeon strap, which is another kind of signature of theirs. It's got this very unique look to it. The dial as well is sterling silver, and it was patented in a process that they figured out to make it brown, which was another request from the guy who ordered it. So even the hands, the buckle, the case, the crown, which is an awesome crown. Check out that crown. The crown, the dial, the hands, and then even the parts of the perpetual calendar, which include the disc under there where you can see it indicating the day, the power reserve indicator, the small seconds, the date wheel, everything is sterling silver, from top to bottom, which is really, really cool. The perpetual calendar is interesting on this watch. It is indicated by all these dots. So right here you have a day-night indicator. The dots around are the day, or the date, basically, date of the month. So here you can see it's the 16th. Obviously that would be 30, and that's why you have that one of 31. And this is the indicator of both the month and the year within the leap year cycle. So when it gets to the this one, the kind of bottom one there, that's the leap year. So right now it's in the 3rd year, and this travels around, and wherever that's pointing to is the month. So you can see it's at 5 o'clock right now, basically. So it's May 16, and on the 3rd year. So next year is the leap year, and so it's set correctly. I said it yesterday. This is May 16, and it's 2019, where 2020 is a leap year. So it is a perpetual calendar, so of course it'll jump from the 30th to the 1st, or the 28th or 29th to the 1st in February. And it's really, really cool. It's sort of a the complication-wise, the kind of tip top of Ochs Junior and of this Ludwig Eschlin aesthetic. And I do have other Ochs Junior videos, so check them out if you like this kind of vibe. But you can see what I was talking about with both of these. This is sort of a new kind of luxury. Like, this type of thing obviously wouldn't have caught on 50 years ago, right? This is the antithesis of what luxury was at that time. But in this new world, this is the new luxury. It's honest manufacturing, it's mechanical innovation, it is incorporating the design language that has been evolved throughout the decades, and this is the kind of very modern, it's not a coincidence that, like, Tony Fadell, the founder of Nest, is now a big proponent of Ressence watches, right? It's a very similar design language and aesthetic to all of these products that we know and love right now. And this idea of not, sure, they could go in and hand finish every piece of these movements and make everything by hand and do whatever, and each one of these could cost $150,000, or they can use tried and true mechanics with their own mechanical innovations and their own design language and make really amazing pieces of horology with some of the best design in the world and keep them in the kind of $20,000 to $30,000 range. And so this is really an example of the new modern luxury for kind of my generation. This is what a lot of people like, and these are both really from amazing creators who are trying to do things right. So let me show you these watches on the wrist. I'll start here. This is an interesting buckle system that they use. The buckle actually goes over and then ducks under here rather than having a strap catcher. So it almost is, you know, it continues this minimalist philosophy even into the buckle. So that's the Ochs Jr. Really unique. I've never really had a watch with a similar kind of look to this on the wrist. My wife said it's the perfect desert watch. And you can see the silver, you know, I don't know that I'd be able to identify it as silver. I'm not such an expert, and people aren't used to seeing silver used in watches for whatever reason, but it definitely has a different look to it. It's almost a yellowish, warmish glow that is definitely not gold, but it's very obviously not steel or titanium. And it just kind of picks up the light in a different way than those materials do. So that's the Ochs Jr. You can see, I'm just trying to show you how it catches light differently. Really playful. And then the Ressence is almost, is quite a bit more sort of austere and minimal in its presentation. It's very like gray, very, I'm struggling with this strap here. I'm not even gonna bother with that. You know, it is much less bright. It doesn't really catch the light at all. It is definitely more minimal in its presentation and kind of sleek. You know, it's thinner, the way the lugs curve. I think the cases are listed at the same size, but it definitely wears smaller and thinner and more sleek. And you can see, again, that sort of minimalist aesthetic and the amazing machining qualities while not being kind of overwrought. So these are two really cool watches. They I think definitely appeal to a lot of people to whom a lot of other horology might not. They fill a really cool area that's between traditional luxury and independent watches. You know, I know a lot of people who like these definitely like the ethos of an independent watchmaker, but maybe they're just a little bit more casual or less into fanciful things. And so these kind of fill that void that's left in the market. A big brand could never come out with something like this. You know, the Swatch Group or Richemont or whatever would never make watches like this. And that, I think, makes them really special. So I'm happy that I got to share these to you. Share these with you. It's really cool to get both of them at one time. I think they make a really nice pairing. And I will be back soon with more goodies. Thanks.